What if I told you that some of the most resilient plants on Earth aren't tucked away in research greenhouses or protected by conservation agencies, but literally thriving right now in some of the harshest, most unforgiving climates on the planet? Most people don't know this, but while we're all worried about water shortages and climate collapse, there are crops that have been feeding humans in deserts, wastelands, and drought-stricken regions for thousands of years without requiring the constant irrigation we assume is necessary. Plants that require almost no water. Plants that actually thrive when everything else dies. Plants that have sustained entire civilizations through environmental challenges that would have destroyed conventional agriculture. And today, I'm going to show you 20 of them that will completely change the way you think about survival agriculture forever. I'm Elias Thorne, and today inside the Plant Vault, we're talking about crops that survive when water disappears. Stick around because number 17 on this list can survive for literally years without a drop of water and still produce food. And modern scientists just confirmed it stores more usable calories per square foot than almost any other crop on Earth. And number 20. It's been sustaining entire civilizations in the most extreme environments for over 5,000 years. Indigenous peoples built empires on this single crop, while most of us would have starved in those exact conditions. These aren't theoretical plants or experimental hybrids. They're proven, tested, reliable crops that have earned their place through millennia of successful cultivation. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because we post new videos every week that connect ancient agricultural wisdom with modern survival knowledge, teaching you to grow your own food in any condition imaginable. So let's get into it. Here are 20 survival crops that grow without water, ranked from impressive to absolutely extraordinary. Number 1. Agave, the desert survivor. Let's start with a plant that's become trendy as a sweetener, but was originally prized as pure survival food in the harshest imaginable conditions. Agave americana, along with related species, is native to the deserts of Mexico, where water is scarcer than currency, and most living things simply die. For millennia, indigenous peoples relied on agave for sustenance in conditions where nothing else could survive. The plant stores massive amounts of carbohydrates in its heart, which when baked underground in pit fires for days becomes incredibly sweet and nutritious. You can eat the raw heart like a cooked vegetable, make syrup from the sap for sweetening and preservation, use the leaves for fiber and cordage to make baskets and rope, and even create alcoholic beverages for both consumption and long-term storage. Modern nutritionists have verified that agave contains unique carbohydrates and minerals that sustained entire populations through extended droughts. The plant requires virtually no water after establishment, living entirely on what little rainfall comes naturally. It produces food for years before even flowering, which means decades of harvest. Once mature, a single agave plant can feed a family for weeks through careful preparation and processing. Number 2. Prickly pear cactus, the fence that feeds you. Opuntia is one of those plants so adapted to extreme aridity that it practically mocks traditional agriculture and laughs at drought conditions. The whole plant is edible from every angle. The fruits, called tunas, are sweet and packed with vitamin C and antioxidants. The leaves, called nopals, have been a staple food in Mexico for thousands of years, served fresh, pickled, or cooked. They're rich in protein, fiber, and minerals, particularly calcium. Modern studies show the plant has incredible nutritional density and actually helps regulate blood sugar levels in ways that interest researchers. It grows in clusters, spreads aggressively, and adapts to literally any soil condition from rocky to sandy to degraded. You can plant a single pad in rocky, sandy, or degraded soil, and within months have an entire food production system that keeps producing for years. The fruit ripens in late summer and stores for months when kept in cool, dry conditions. The plant requires virtually no maintenance beyond occasional harvesting, pruning, and maybe protecting from severe frost. For anyone in a survival situation, prickly pear is arguably the best return on investment you could plant because it's so foolproof. Number 3. Tamarisk, the water-efficient producer. Tamarisk species are so efficient at surviving in arid conditions that they've actually become invasive in many dry regions because they outcompete native plants so thoroughly. But that same efficiency makes them incredibly valuable for survival agriculture and land restoration. The seeds are nutritious and can be ground into flour or eaten whole. The leaves can be eaten in desperation, particularly in early spring when tender, or used to feed livestock during drought periods when other forage disappears. The wood burns hot and long, making excellent fuel for cooking and heating in regions with no other wood source. The roots stabilize soil and prevent erosion in ways that are almost magical. The plant actually improves desert soil by trapping wind-blown organic material and creating nitrogen-fixing relationships with soil bacteria. It tolerates saltwater, brackish conditions, and abandoned agricultural land that would literally kill most plants within weeks. In parts of the Middle East and North Africa, tamarisk has supported nomadic peoples for centuries, providing food, fuel, and shade during extreme heat. Number 4. Sorghum, the grain that laughs at drought. Sorghum is one of the world's most drought-tolerant grains, developed over thousands of years by African farmers in the harshest environments imaginable, where water simply doesn't exist for extended periods. It produces nutritious grain that stores incredibly well for long-term food security, lasting for years in proper conditions. The plant can survive on rainfall amounts that would literally starve wheat or corn, requiring about half the water of wheat. It grows taller than most grains, sometimes reaching 12 feet or more, creating natural windbreaks for other crops and protecting soil. The leaves make excellent animal fodder for cattle and livestock during dry seasons. Some varieties develop sweet sap that can be processed into syrup, similar to sugarcane, but requiring only a fraction of the water requirement. Modern climate scientists are actually pushing sorghum as a critical crop for future food security as water becomes scarcer globally due to climate change. It's been feeding people through droughts for millennia, and nothing has changed about its reliability or efficiency. Number 5. Amaranth, the lost superfood. Amaranth was actually a staple crop of the Aztecs before Spanish colonial conquest nearly destroyed knowledge of its cultivation and importance. The plant is almost absurdly nutritious in ways that modern nutritionists are still documenting. The grain contains complete protein with all 9 amino acids, making it nutritionally equivalent to meat in terms of amino acid profile. The leaves are like spinach, but even more nutrient-dense, packed with calcium, iron, and vitamins. The entire plant is edible, from seeds to roots to stems, meaning nothing goes to waste. It tolerates poor soil, extreme heat, and drought conditions that would devastate most crops, especially wheat and corn. It grows quickly, maturing in about 2 months, which means multiple harvests in warm regions. A single packet of seeds can multiply into thousands of plants within a single season. The seeds store for years in cool, dry conditions without any special preparation. Modern nutritionists have literally called it a superfood, which it is, but it's been feeding people in extreme conditions for thousands of years before the term superfood even existed. Number 6. Jujube, the date-like fruit. Ziziphus jujuba produces sweet fruits that taste like a date-apple hybrid and require almost no water once established beyond the first growing season. The tree is so hardy that Chinese farmers have used it for over 4,000 years in arid and semi-arid regions. The fruit is incredibly nutritious, packed with vitamin C levels that rival citrus fruits and minerals including calcium and iron. You can eat them fresh right off the tree, dry them for storage that lasts for years, or process them into paste for concentrated nutrition. A mature tree produces abundantly year after year, often providing hundreds of pounds of fruit annually. The wood is strong and burns well, making excellent fuel and construction material. The leaves make medicinal tea used traditionally for sleep and relaxation. The roots stabilize and improve soil through their deep penetration into the earth. In deserts from China to North Africa, jujube orchards have sustained communities through droughts and famines when other crops completely failed. A single tree can live for hundreds of years and feed multiple generations, becoming a multi-century investment. Number 7. Date palm, the oasis staple. Phoenix dactylifera isn't just a beautiful plant with cultural significance. For thousands of years, it was literally the difference between survival and starvation in desert regions across North Africa and the Middle East. A single mature date palm produces over 100 pounds of fruit annually with minimal water once fully established, relying mainly on deep groundwater. The fruit is carbohydrate-dense, vitamin-rich, and stores for literally years without refrigeration in dry conditions. The leaves create shade for other crops, allowing understory cultivation of herbs and vegetables. The wood builds structures, providing material for homes and furniture in regions with no forests. Every part of the tree has been utilized by desert peoples, including the seed, which is now being researched as a superfood. A functioning date palm oasis can support significant populations with virtually no external resources, essentially turning wasteland into fertile ground. Modern survival experts and climate scientists are actually recommending date palm cultivation in arid regions as climate patterns shift and water becomes even scarcer. If you're starting to notice something here, if you're realizing that humans have actually figured out how to thrive in the most difficult conditions without industrial agriculture or constant water access, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button right now. It helps this video reach other people who are ready to understand that survival isn't about fighting nature or trying to impose our will on landscapes. It's about working with what nature actually provides in any given environment and choosing plants that evolved for those specific conditions. This isn't theoretical knowledge. These are crops that have sustained entire populations through droughts, famines, wars, and environmental disasters that would have destroyed conventional agriculture completely. And if you haven't subscribed to Homestead Roots yet, click that subscribe button and ring the bell. We're building a community of people who understand real resilience and are ready to reconnect with agricultural wisdom that works. And I'd love to have you as part of it. We're only halfway through, and you're already learning about plants that could literally save your life and feed your family in conditions most people would consider impossible. Number 8. Teff, the tiny grain powerhouse. Eragrostis teff is an ancient grain from Ethiopia that produces incredibly nutritious seeds in almost no space, making it perfect for limited agricultural land. A single plant produces thousands of tiny grains, almost impossibly small, that are complete proteins with all essential amino acids needed for human nutrition. The grain stores perfectly for years in cool, dry conditions without special processing or preservation methods. It tolerates poor soil and extreme heat, actually thriving in conditions that would kill wheat or barley. It actually improves soil health through nitrogen fixation, meaning it rebuilds soil rather than depleting it. The plant is so efficient that a small garden plot can produce months of staple grain for a family. It has been feeding Ethiopian populations for over 3,000 years through every drought and famine that came, proving its reliability. Modern nutrition science has confirmed what traditional peoples always knew through empirical observation and experience. This tiny grain is nutritionally complete and balanced enough to sustain human populations indefinitely. Number 9. Moringa, the miracle tree. Moringa oleifera has been called the most nutritious plant on Earth, and honestly, that might not be hyperbole given the nutrient density and completeness of nutrition it provides. Every part is edible and nutritious from root to seed in ways that few plants can match. The leaves contain complete protein with all essential amino acids, all vitamins including vitamin C and vitamin A, and minerals including calcium, iron, and magnesium in concentrations that rival supplements. The pods are like okra when cooked and are nutritious and delicious, adding value to meals. The roots are like horseradish with a peppery kick and medicinal properties used traditionally. The seeds clean water through natural coagulation properties that work almost like conventional water treatment systems. The tree grows in degraded soil and extreme heat, actually improving soil conditions for subsequent plantings. It produces edible leaves and flowers within just a few months of planting. The leaves regrow constantly throughout the year after harvesting, meaning multiple harvests from a single tree annually. In places where malnutrition is endemic, moringa has literally transformed community health by providing nutrition that matches or exceeds most vegetables combined. It requires almost no water once established, and produces food abundance in conditions where almost nothing else survives or thrives. Number 10. Cassava, the hunger-proof root. Manihota esculenta produces starchy roots that sustained populations through some of history's worst famines and environmental disasters. A single plant produces massive tubers underground in soil, too poor for other crops to grow, literally creating calories where no other plant could. The tubers store in the ground for months or even years in tropical heat without rotting or losing nutritional value. You process them into flour through drying and grinding that lasts for years without refrigeration. The leaves are incredibly nutritious and often overlooked, containing complete proteins and minerals. The plant actually improves soil and can be used in crop rotation systems. It survives on minimal water, deriving most moisture from deep underground sources. In parts of Africa and South America, cassava is literally the crop that stands between populations and starvation during droughts or other disasters. It's been doing that dependably for hundreds of years of documented history. A single planting can feed a family for months through careful management and storage. Number 11. Chickpea, the drought warrior legume. Cicer arietinum is one of the oldest domesticated crops, used for over 7,000 years in some of the harshest agricultural regions where survival is a constant challenge. The plant actually fixes nitrogen into soil, improving it for subsequent crops and rebuilding depleted agricultural land. The seeds are protein-dense, containing about 20% protein by weight, and store indefinitely in cool, dry conditions. They grow in cool seasons in arid regions, often thriving when temperatures would kill other crops. A single crop can feed a family for months or even a year when stored as dried grain and rationed carefully. The plant is so efficient that Indian farmers have built entire civilizations on chickpea agriculture in semi-arid conditions, creating economic systems around this single crop. Modern climate scientists are actually recommending expanding chickpea cultivation as global water stress increases and water becomes a limiting factor. It's the forgotten crop that could feed billions as conditions become more extreme and unpredictable. Number 12. Acorns from oak trees, the calorie-dense secret. Quercus species produce acorns that are calorie-dense and store well when properly processed and stored in cool conditions without special preservation. Indigenous peoples in California built complex societies on acorn agriculture, developing sophisticated processing techniques and storage systems that allowed them to feed populations reliably. A mature oak tree produces hundreds of pounds of acorns annually, which is absolutely remarkable for calorie production per square foot. Processing them removes bitter tannins through leaching methods that indigenous peoples perfected over generations, making them palatable and digestible. The resulting flour sustains populations and can be made into bread, porridge, or stored for later use in traditional preparations. Oak trees require no irrigation beyond natural rainfall, making them perfect for marginal lands that other crops cannot use. They improve soil through leaf litter and their deep root systems that bring up minerals. They create habitat and food for wildlife, while simultaneously providing for human populations in balanced ecological systems. They live for centuries producing food, becoming multi-generational food sources for families over hundreds of years. In temperate regions with seasonal rainfall, oak forests are literally food forests that feed humans and wildlife simultaneously in ways that agricultural systems cannot match. Modern foragers are rediscovering what indigenous peoples always knew through traditional ecological knowledge. Acorns are cereal, less calories and nutrition. Number 13. Lupine, the protein legume that laughs at aridity. Lupinus species produce nutrient-dense seeds packed with protein and minerals that make them valuable food sources. The plant actually improves soil through nitrogen fixation, enriching even poor agricultural land. It grows in poor, sandy, rocky soil where almost nothing else survives, turning wasteland into productive land. Multiple crops per year in some climates, meaning rapid production and food security. The seeds store for years without special processing when kept dry and cool. Processing them removes bitter compounds through traditional soaking and cooking methods. The resulting flour is complete protein with all essential amino acids. In Mediterranean regions and semi-arid zones, Lupine has sustained populations AF, or thousands of years through documented history. Modern nutritionists are investigating traditional lupine dishes as solutions for protein security in drought regions facing climate challenges. Number 14. Pistachio, the tree of extreme efficiency. Pistachia lentiscus and related species produce nuts in arid regions with absolutely minimal water beyond what nature provides naturally. The tree actually thrives in poor soil and extreme heat that would stress most crop plants significantly, expanding where production is possible. A mature tree produces abundantly, providing hundreds of pounds of nuts annually once established. The nuts are protein and fat-rich, perfect macronutrient balance for long-term storage and sustenance through difficult periods. They're literally shelf-stable for years when stored in cool, dry conditions without any special preservation or processing needed. In the Middle East, pistachio trees have supported communities for millennia, becoming the backbone of regional economies and trade. The tree improves soil through its deep root systems that reach far into the earth, preventing erosion. A single mature tree provides food security for individuals or entire families for extended periods. Modern agriculturalists in arid regions are actually expanding pistachio cultivation because it's so reliable and provides multi-generational food production that compound over time. Number 15. Mung bean, the fastest food legume. Vigna radiata is a protein legume that matures in about 2 months, offering rapid food production in survival situations. The seeds store indefinitely in cool, dry conditions, remaining viable for years. They're complete protein containing all essential amino acids needed for human nutrition and health. They grow in poor soil, actually improving it through nitrogen fixation. They require minimal water, living mainly on rainfall in subtropical and tropical regions. You can sprout them fresh for living food or store them dry for long-term security. In Asia, mung beans have been a staple crop for thousands of years, particularly in dry regions where other crops struggle. A small garden patch produces massive amounts of food, making it extremely efficient. They're nutritionally complete and can sustain populations. They improve soil for subsequent crops. They store perfectly without deterioration. For pure survival calorie production, mung beans might be unmatched in terms of growth speed and reliability. Number 16. Carob tree, the locust bean that was mistaken for locusts. Ceratonia siliqua produces sweet pods that sustained Mediterranean populations for thousands of years, becoming central to their agricultural systems. The tree requires no irrigation once established, surviving entirely on natural rainfall and deep groundwater. The pods are carbohydrate-dense and store well for years when kept dry. You can grind them into flour for baking or eat them directly as a sweet treat. They're naturally sweet with no processing needed for palatability. The tree lives for centuries, some specimens being hundreds of years old. It improves soil and can be used in restoration agriculture. A mature tree produces abundantly, sometimes producing hundreds of pounds of pods annually. In biblical times, people even mistook these pods for the locusts mentioned in Scripture, suggesting their abundance and importance. The tree is that reliable and productive. Modern Mediterranean farmers are rediscovering carob as climate becomes drier and water stress increases. Number 17. Quinoa, the complete protein grain from the mountains. Chenopodium quinoa was cultivated by the Incas at altitudes and in conditions where almost nothing else grows, making it a survival crop for millennia. The grain is a complete protein, with all essential amino acids in balanced ratios. It stores for years without deterioration when kept dry and cool. It grows in poor soil, actually improving soil conditions through its biochemistry. It survives extreme cold and heat, thriving at altitudes where most crops simply fail. It's drought-tolerant, requiring minimal water beyond rainfall. Modern studies have confirmed that a person could literally survive indefinitely on just quinoa as the sole food source. It's that nutritionally complete and balanced. A small garden produces massive yields in terms of nutrition per square foot. The leaves are also edible and nutritious, providing additional food value. Modern climate scientists are actually promoting quinoa cultivation as traditional grain crops become unreliable in changing climates. Number 18. Buckwheat, the grain that loves poor soil. Phagopyrum esculentum is a pseudo-grain that grows where actual grains fail, thriving in conditions that would devastate conventional crops. It tolerates acidic, poor soil that most crops reject, even improving soil through its biochemical properties. It matures in about 2 months, providing rapid food production. The grain is nutritious and stores well for years without special preservation. It doesn't require much water, relying mainly on rainfall. Multiple crops per year in some climates, allowing successive plantings. In harsh regions of Asia and Eastern Europe, buckwheat has been the survival crop, particularly in mountainous and marginal areas. It's been feeding people through cold winters and drought for hundreds of years, proven reliable. You can make flour, noodles, or eat the groats directly as a finished food. Modern homesteaders are rediscovering this ancient crop as they realize how well it performs. Number 19. Barley, the ancient grain of survival. Hordeum vulgare has been cultivated for over 10,000 years, particularly in arid and cold regions, where survival depends on reliable crops. The grain is incredibly nutritious and can be eaten whole, ground into flour, or processed in numerous ways. It stores indefinitely in cool, dry conditions, lasting for decades without deterioration. It grows in poor soil that other grains cannot tolerate. It's drought-tolerant, surviving on minimal rainfall. The plant itself feeds livestock through its straw and leaves. The grain ferments into preservable beverages that last for years, providing both nutrition and preservation. In medieval times and ancient periods, barley kept populations alive through conditions that would have decimated them otherwise, preventing starvation. It's been feeding humans in extreme conditions for millennia of documented history. Modern climate scientists are recommending barley expansion in regions facing water stress. It's the ancient grain that never fails populations that depend on it. Number 20. Millet, the forgotten grain of billions. Pennisetum and panicum species are millets that have fed billions of people across Africa and Asia for thousands of years with incredible reliability. The grains are nutritious, containing complete proteins and essential minerals. They store well for years without refrigeration or special preservation. They grow in poor soil, actually improving depleted agricultural land. They're incredibly drought-tolerant, surviving in conditions where virtually nothing else grows. They produce quickly and can offer multiple harvests in a single season. A single plant produces thousands of seeds, meaning exponential production from minimal inputs. They're processed into porridge, flour, or eaten whole in various traditional preparations. In parts of Africa, millet is literally the grain that has prevented starvation countless times during droughts and environmental disasters. Modern nutritionists are finally recognizing what traditional peoples always knew through generations of experience. Millet is a complete nutrition source capable of sustaining human populations indefinitely. As climate becomes unpredictable, millet might actually be the crop that saves populations from food insecurity. It's been doing exactly that for 5,000 years, proving itself time and again. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, you've just learned something extraordinary. Survival agriculture isn't modern, it isn't complicated. It's ancient knowledge that has sustained humans through every conceivable environmental challenge, from droughts to famines to climate shifts. These 20 crops aren't folklore or theoretical. They're legitimate food production validated by thousands of years of human history and modern scientific confirmation. You've now learned about plants that can literally survive in conditions where nothing else grows and still provide complete nutrition. You've learned about crops that improve soil instead of depleting it. You've learned about agriculture that requires almost no water, while conventional farming demands constant irrigation. So here's what I want you to do. Smash that like button if this video changed the way you think about food security and agriculture. Drop a comment below and tell me which survival crops surprised you the most. Are you team ancient grains like quinoa and millet? Team desert trees like date palms and jujubes? Team legumes like chickpeas and mung beans? I read every comment, and I love hearing from you about what captures your interest. And if you haven't subscribed to Homestead Roots yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. We're connecting ancient survival wisdom with modern knowledge, and I'd love to have you on this journey with us, because sometimes the most powerful agriculture isn't in industrial farms with their chemical inputs and water demands. Sometimes it's in the ancient crops that have been quietly sustaining humanity all along, just waiting for you to remember they exist and learn to work with them.